but have to introduce themselves, because that's what it's all about, are asked to do so. So who are you?
Good morning. My name is Kichba. I work with AMCOW, African Ministers Council on Water, as the sanitation focal point.
When did you hear from SuSanA?
When did I join?
When did you first time hear from SuSanA?
6 years ago.
Okay. Welcome.
Thank you.
And you're organizing AfricaZan, which will keep us busy, so maybe we'll learn more about that. And yes, there's a new face. You haven't been there in the very first?
I was a bit late. Good morning, everybody. My name is Ingeborg Krukket from IRC. IRC WASH. I think the first time I heard from SuSanA was when I joined IRC. It's 18 years ago.
It's slightly younger, 8 years?
18.
11
You're 26, right?
Oh, no,
26 meeting. No.
Oh, yes. But
Yeah.
okay.
Oh, well, I think from the start then. Yeah, that must be it. Maybe, so there's AfricaZan. There's another symposium in March, Systems Go, which I think is interesting for everyone here. So check out the website and please make sure we have sanitation in that symposium.
Thank you very much. Who are you?
Hi, I'm Jennifer McConville. I'm from the Swedish Agricultural University, and I've been associated with SuSanA since 2008, maybe. I used to work for the EcoSan Reds program at SCI.
No way out. Anybody else I might have not have seen? Otherwise, I hand back to the moderators of this session.
I think we can start now. Assalamu alaikum. Good morning, everyone. My name is Hiba Ababne. I'm working for GIZ Jordan for the global program Sanitation for Millions. It's my pleasure with my colleague Daniel Zipa from the Stockholm Environment Institute to welcome you to the second session of the 26th meeting for the Sustainable Sanitation Alliance. Welcome, everybody. As you know, around 3 years ago, the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda with its 17 Sustainable Development Goals were launched. It included a dedicated goal to ensure the availability and sustainable management for water and sanitation for all, as mentioned, as Mr. Mike mentioned in his introduction. And as it's well known, water and sanitation services are central and essential for any development process, as it's very linked to as a life requirement in the different fields. So in this session, we will look at the SDG 6 and its synergies. We will have two presentations or two contributions highlighting two cases, the interlinkage between the water and sanitation with the migration, the humanitarian cases, and the water and sanitation with the education sector. So now I would like to welcome our first speaker for this session, Mr. Thilo Panzerbieter, who's the founder and executive director for the German Toilet Organization, and he is a member of the SuSanA School Group. His presentation will look at the sanitation in emergencies with focus on the development of online marketplace for the Emergencies compendiums. Mr. Thilo, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here, and thanks for this opportunity to showcase some work that has recently been done concerning the compendium of sanitation technologies in emergencies. This is a publication that was launched on the side of the Global WASH Cluster meeting earlier this year, and we're happy to also launch it here in Stockholm in the water community, and I'll come to that later. It's a multi-agency publication that was started as an idea by the German WASH network. That's a network of 22 civil society organizations in Germany. And primarily working on this publication was the German Toilet Organization together with Borda as two members of the German WASH network. And this was done in very close collaboration with EAWAG, who did an incredible amount of work on this publication, because it's basically the counterpart to the, I think, very famous EAWAG Compendium of Technologies, Sanitation Technologies for a developmental context. Since the Global WASH Cluster is the global coordinating body for humanitarian aid in terms of this field, there was from the very first point a close collaboration with them to see that it fulfills the needs of what they're looking forward to doing here. And since the old compendium was, I think, a sounding board product that the SuSanA was also involved in, this was also definitely the case for this publication, with particularly the working group on emergencies being used as a sounding board. So these are basically the four main birth helpers of this publication, let's put it that way. Supported by the work of the German WASH network, by our Federal Foreign Office of Germany, and SDC for the work of that EAWAG contributed. But it couldn't have been done, and the publication couldn't have had such great quality, I think, as it does, if we hadn't involved more than 70 sector experts from more than 25 organizations or institutions. So it was truly a collaborative effort by all means. So here you see a picture of it. If you want to see the real version of it, you'll have to go to the launch that we'll have here at the Water Week. It's about a 200-page publication, so it's quite extensive in what it covers. Like I said, an expert peer-reviewed overview of the technologies. So in depth, I think we had the leading persons for each type of technology that were commenting on these things. So I think it's very robust in what it states. Just like the other compendium that you probably all know from EAWAG, it disaggregates the technologies by different functional components and provides clarity on all terms and vocabulary that's used, so that it becomes clear for anyone who engages and looks to this sort of handbook or encyclopedia, as you may, for guidance, that they get what they're looking for, which basically makes it a very strong capacity development tool. It can be used for trainings and such, but also a very strong decision support tool when people are trying to decide what they need for their scenario that they're facing, presenting which decision criteria and which cross-cutting issues also need to be considered. To many, if we sort of open up the book, you will recognize, if you know the old compendium by EAWAG, that it's structured in a similar way into on-site transport, off-site solutions, and basically accompanying the products that need to be dealt with through different stages of the user interface, collection, conveyance, and different forms of treatment, potentially reuse or disposal. And then apologies for not being able to read this, but I'll assist you a little bit. Then obviously it has, it links to all sorts of cross-cutting issues that are relevant, be it that we look at different scenarios in which type of situation of an emergency or which type of crises different things may be needed, but also then conceptual aspects or design or social considerations. So design for different groups, but also looking at the soft components that are at the fringes of effective technology selection and implementation. So that's the looking backward, and that's the document that you can all carry home in your suitcase coming from this conference, or I think we also have little cards where you can QR code scan and download the document. And looking into the future now, the next step would be to make an e-compendium of this, so not just have a PDF that's uploaded, but to actually have an online version that allows interactive engagement, the way I think that all of you know from the SuSanA platform that we enjoy, that it's more about than just receiving information, but being able to engage and input. The e-compendium is planned to be a capacity building tool that we want to be used widely, and it's supposed to be used by the humanitarian sector. So what better location to have it centrally located than, as you see at the bottom, basically at the WASH cluster. But SuSanA being such a hub for knowledge management, dissemination, and discussion of technologies, is the perfect place to actually be hosting this and giving it as a contribution then to the Global WASH Cluster homepage, so that humanitarian actors, I think, in the future will much stronger be involved in SuSanA as well. So what is it supposed to include? Of course, the complete content of this publication, case study collections that we could then add, which currently aren't in the publication, an interactive sanitation configurator that helps you select your correct configuration, regional country entry points, an online marketplace. I'll speak about that in the remaining minutes of the presentation, and then training materials, glossary, library, and forum, and this is supposed to come online next year. So this online marketplace, maybe just to embark on that quickly, and this is basically a thing that we would like to, a place where companies, businesses can also then promote products, services, research, and we would have a sort of place for matchmaking. It's supposed to have a standardized entry mask so that the information collected can be coherent for each stakeholder plugging something in, ideally including some sort of rating tool or forum to proof what people are entering, and some sort of curation or moderation if necessary. So all of this, just to be clear, is just sort of our thinking of what might be possible here. This is not cast in stone, so happy for this to be part of our discussion. And at the end of the day, we're basically saying that this e-compendium could be sort of a first pilot project where we could try something like this out. So that's sort of a vision I'm sharing with you, and happy to get your reaction on it in a second. So I'll end on that note, just making sure that you plug into your calendar this time frame and location, and it would be a great pleasure to see all of you there to make sure that we have a good launch of this publication, and please carry some home and tell others about it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Thilo. I'm going to ask you all to save your questions for the end. We're going to have one more presentation, and then we'll have questions for both presenters together. So the person that is going to do the next presentation is a very interdisciplinary person. I was at a symposium some time back, and we were talking about resource recovery, and people said we need to have more sanitation people going to agriculture conferences, and we need to call agriculture people to sanitation conferences. Now today, finally, I discovered that we have someone that can represent the sanitation sector in conferences of dental hygienists. This is somebody with a dental background, a dentist, and she's worked also with WASH, and she's going to be talking about WASH in schools. Dr. Bella Monse is the coordinator for research and international relations of the GIZ Regional Fit for Schools program, and she's going to be presenting about the SDG targets and WASH in schools. You're welcome.
Is this working?
Yeah, sure.
Is this working?
No, it's not.
Yeah, but you can use this.
Okay. And where to do the next slide there? Okay. Okay. Yes, thank you for the nice introduction. Yes, I was a dentist in my previous life, but since more than 18 years, I'm now really working on WASH in schools. And if you look at it, in dentistry, you had to improve health of children. And how will you do that without access to water, without possibility to practice hygiene in schools? You need water there. And that is how I came to water and hygiene. Hand washing was included, so you looked into getting that more comprehensive wash and hygiene programs to school. And of course, that also later looks at where are the toilets and are they clean or not? That's also part of a broader way of looking at hygiene. I speak briefly about the relation between WASH in schools and specifically into that monitoring aspect. If you look at it, WASH in schools is really a topic at the interface between education, water and sanitation, and health. And very clear the responsibilities, the water and sanitation sector will always have the responsibility to provide the expertise for infrastructure and for water access, because that's not available in the education sector. That's the responsibility of the water sector. The health sector will provide expertise on hygiene promotion and the impact of hygiene on health, and will do advocacy for that, and will also be involved in checking the water quality. But the education sector is the one who manages WASH in schools. So the entire managing, planning, budgeting, operation and maintenance and monitoring is in the responsibility of the education sector. And important is that that topic is fairly new to the education sector. They have before really just focused on education. They've never really looked at the toilets. They were closing their eyes a lot. And therefore, it's great to have now WASH in schools within the SDG monitoring framework. And it is clearly now linked in the education sector. And there are now clear core and expanded questions to answer to indicators. These questions should be integrated into the EMIS, the Education Management Information System, which each country has in their education sector, and to integrate a few questions into the EMIS to also make sure this topic is part of education sector responsibility. And very clear the education sector should be in the lead. And I think that's something for us. Many of us here come from the development sector. And WASH in schools has always been very much in the development sector, rooted among water sanitation people. But it's so important to look for the linkage to the education sector, because they have to run the show. Very important also and interesting, the baseline has been conducted. The global baseline report will be presented on Tuesday. And Christy Chatterley, who were spearheading this baseline, is among us here. Christy, maybe you stand up. She will present this on Tuesday, and it will be great. She can maybe also answer some questions later on. But great if you can join this session on Tuesday. When we look where is WASH in schools, then it's in SDG 4A under quality education, build and upgrade education facilities. And you can see to have effective learning environments for all. That's under 4A. Then it is, as we all know, under SDGs 6.1 and 6.2. But these are the core SDG goals we're looking at and target areas we are looking at. And these are important again. These are now, you see here, the SDG targets for so-called basic service level. And they're very clear and simple. It's very clear schools should provide basic service for drinking water. That's drinking water from an improved source available at school. That sounds easy, but it's a very, very hard to reach target. It's very difficult to reach. For toilets is improved toilets which are single sex and usable. And usable has also clearly been defined. What does it mean? It means access, it means functionality, and it means privacy. So it's very, very clear. And hand washing stations, in the area of hand washing, it's just hand washing stations with water and soap. Previously, we were only counting, do the schools have hand washing stations, yes or no. Nobody was looking if they were functional or if there was soap. But that's all changed now, and that's a big, big change. And that change is clearly a management perspective, which the school has to manage. So here you see it again. I just said that before. Again, these are the clear targets by 2030, and that's a huge, huge, huge responsibility. And we're far away from that. These are the core questions. You cannot read it, but it's just 7 questions for each country, exactly these questions, to put that into their education management information system. And the problem one can see all over is that many countries changing that. So the wording is not the same all over. And that will again make a problem that the results cannot be really compared. So please, all of you, if ever you have the possibility, look that we stick with this wording, because that has been worked out in a long, long process with many people and organizations. And it's good to really stick exactly to the wording. And if you have access and if you work in this area, it's important to work on this. A new increasingly important topic is menstrual hygiene management. And of course you can say, well, I do not see it in these, in the indicators. Where is it? It is in, I will show it later, but most important is it's an increasingly important topic. It's also a topic again at the interface. Menstrual hygiene management is at the interface also to health, reproductive health, but also sanitation and waste management. There's a lot to work on that. But the most important aspect has always been to say access to information and access to sanitation facility which provide privacy and possibility for hand washing. There are very nice booklets around, no need to create all over something new. There is wonderful material around, and also within SuSanA there have been several webinars done. There is also there's a webinar series, as well as a lot in the library. Just to see where is it, for example, MHM, menstrual hygiene management within the basic service level, this entire aspect of gender segregated toilets has a lot to do. The usable toilets, that they are functional and that they provide privacy, and that you have hand washing facilities with water and soap. In the expanded service level, you can still look for covered bins, for disposal mechanisms, and for functional lighting and emergency material in schools. Important is whatever you do in the area of wash in schools, have it very simple, because the system, the education sector, is very weak in many cases. Not always, that cannot really have very complex interventions and scale them up. So they have to be simple and working with the system in order to scale and to be sustainable. And if you see this, the school is always, whatever happens in the school, and specifically wash in schools, is in the middle. You have interventions, but they will never work without really looking at the complex stakeholder landscape, without a lot of school-based management, and of course you have the infrastructure. But interventions only in the infrastructure will never ever really work, that you can implement the interventions. It needs the management and the stakeholders. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Bella. We are now going to have a round of questions and answers. I'll invite Thilo back here as well. So we'll have 3 questions from the audience, and then they will be answered at once, and then if there's still time, we'll have a round of 3 other questions. Yep. Okay. All right. Here.
Yes, okay. Thank you very much for 2 very interesting presentations. Thilo, my question to you is, what is the plan for translation of the compendium to the languages where we have major emergencies like Arabic and languages, also Spanish and those things?
All right.
Thanks. Sorry. Yeah, Thilo.
should I answer immediately, or are we going to collecting a few questions? Okay.
Okay. Thanks very much. My question, or also a comment, is to Thilo, and maybe it's also a word of caution. I think it's great, this plan for doing this e-format for the compendium. Now you are mentioning at the beginning offering a platform for promotion of products. And there I would like to make a word of caution. You know, I have been involved in so many promotions, people coming up with a silver bullet, never saying what's the problem with it, but always the great things. Yeah. And people in the field are really confronted with all that. What should they do? So my question is, how do you want to deal with this? I would even make the suggestion that you call it not promotion, but information about products, and that you can make sure, you probably have to moderate that also the negative parts of are present. So just a small comment on that. Thank you.
My question is for Bella. I appreciated you saying that the education sector needed to be in the lead, but then I was surprised to see the questions that you recommended including were only focused on whether the infrastructure was there, not on whether there's anything on WASH in the curriculum. So if you could speak to that, please. WASH in the curriculum in the education system.
Okay. Yeah. So then we can have these three answered, and then we'll have another round of three.
Okay. Okay, first, thank you for those questions. Concerning, like I said, for the e-compendium, we're currently in a phase of defining how that should or could look, and obviously translation is something that we'll strive for. I think that's something to be discussed then with the donors, but I think particularly since we have the Federal Foreign Office of Germany and SDC involved, we hope to at least get quite a few of the main languages, and I'm sure Arabic, with the importance of this issue in that language region, I think we will manage to have several translations available. Which those are, it remains to be seen. I guess it would be good to hear the demands, or to somehow assess the demands for different languages. That I think would be a useful step for us to undertake next. So thank you for that. When it comes to the marketplace and product promotion, I think you're absolutely right. What I presented here was, the first sort of brainstorming slide for us to discuss whether something like that would be appropriate or not. It's completely at that first initial finding stage of how to revise it. I think how to properly name it is an important part, so I completely take that up and immediately wrote that down, that it's information. As the German WASH network, we find that amongst our CSO organizations, we're constantly being approached by different companies trying to promote their products, and we realize that there's a lot of duplication, that each of us are dealing with those requests, wasting, sometimes constructively using time for those dialogues, but the next NGO next door goes through the exact same, sometimes painful dialogue. And so in Germany, with our network, we actually had 2 discussion forums where we invited persons from companies to present their products, to sort of do that in a bundled fashion in a dialogue forum for them to explain, and for us to tell them what's useful or worthless about the suggestions they have, and to thereby try to mobilize the private sector to actually invent certain things or optimize certain things that could actually be useful. I think it's in that spirit that we would want to use this, so it's very much why we also need some sort of forum that then balances and doesn't turn it into an advertisement platform, but very much, I think, harnesses what you were saying. Thank you.
Can you hear me? Yeah, this works now, nice. Thanks for the question. The question was, when I got it right, to say, well, you appreciate that there are now clear indicators in the education sector, but they're still very much infrastructure driven. Is that right? Yeah, I would say no, that's from my perspective, not really true. When you look into the more details, you would see, for example, for sanitation, it's the percentage of schools with toilets that are usable, gender segregated and usable, and you have very clearly defined what usable is. That's only possible with school-based management, that they are clean, that they are functional, that they are private, so that they have a lock. These things can only happen with school-based management. And the same is, for example, for the hand washing part. If there's no soap, if water is not running, the infrastructure is useless. So that's exactly the new part, that exactly these more detailed aspects are there to describe infrastructure. And also in the area of access to drinking water, there's, for example, many countries have also designed a bit more advanced goals or expanded indicators, not goals, indicators, and they go into much more detail with that. This is something, this is the core, has to be in the EMIS, and countries are encouraged to look what fits to them so that they can have additional aspects which really fits their local situation and what they would need to have in. But it's so nice that this is in the EMIS now, because that also is clear where the responsibility is. Because, and only what gets monitored gets done. So I think having it in the EMIS will really, really help to manage wash in schools. Because we all know the many schools all over the world having toilets, and they are not functional, nobody is using them, and sometimes you see even the area where children should run around is a graveyard of generations of toilets, because never toilets will be repaired, there will always be new ones. So with really having lots of toilets unfunctional on school premises, and that's what you see all over. The other thing, okay, yes, thanks for that, the curriculum. This is also an additional, this can be in the advanced questions, you have it in the curriculum, is there wash content in the curriculum? That's also under, I think under hygiene, Christy. It's under hygiene in the advanced indicators, so each country can select from this. And most countries, it's also important to say, most countries have a lot on hygiene in the curriculum. We do not need more on that, I think. I think we would need more on really improving the wash situation. Because I think nothing's worse than having that children learn this, but they cannot do it in the school. They learn that they should wash their hands, but there is no hand washing facility. I think that's what happens a lot, and that's what I hope will also change.
Hi, Stefan Reuter, my name. The South African President, Cyril Ramaphosa, on 14th of August has launched a national speech running a new campaign on safe and appropriate sanitation for schools. What would you offer the South African education sector in order to get up to speed and not reinvent the wheel? I've been living in South Africa for a year. It's similar like we have it in other places in the world, a little bit neglected between the responsibility of Ministry of Education or Basic Education and the water and sanitation services, which normally don't have access to servicing the school. So how to get them up to speed? What would be your offer? It's a question to you, Bella. Thank you.
Big question.
Thanks. Thank you very much, Bella. My name is Adaoko Williams again. And my questions, I like that, not in the main presentation, but in your first comment, you came around to the issue of several toilets in the school broken down, and then we go on and build new ones, and the different terminologies for describing them, toilet mortuaries and all that. It's a big problem and remains a big one, and it borders around the issues of operation and maintenance. And I know that the model we have currently with schools managing them, operating and maintaining them is failing. That's why we have these toilets. I'm just asking, because I know your role in the sector and what you've done around this, what's the current thinking in terms of where we should be going with regards to operating and maintaining toilets, providing, toilet maintenance services as a business. What's your thought on that? And how can we, really push for that? We're thinking about those models, alternative models for community-based wash and other areas. How about the school? What's our thought around that? A second question, if I can just load it on since I have the mic, is with regards to, yes, it's with regards to the issue of gender-segregated toilets and the question around equality, inclusivity, and all of that right now. And then we're still thinking about gender-segregated toilets. And I know this applies mostly to countries where maybe the issues of rights of people with different genders are acknowledged. But increasingly, that right is being pushed across so many of the works we do around. So what's also our thinking, future thinking around gender-segregated toilets or gender-neutral toilets, even for schools? Thank you.
One more. Who went up fast? Should I get it back? That's fine. More fast in the next round.
It's Mandy from Aqua for All from the Netherlands. Also a question to Ms. Bella Monse. Thanks for the very interesting presentation. I was wondering about financing. Who does pay for the wash in schools and how do you arrange, especially considering the contexts where most of our work takes place? So how do we finance? What are your thoughts and ideas about that? Thank you.
I think, Thilo, you should speak last in the next round so that all the questions come to you.
No problem.
Okay.
I'm interested in all the questions as well, so it's fine.
Okay, I think, is it working? No, I think that's so much nicer.
Yeah, it's working, it's working.
Okay, it's working, okay. Yeah, thank you, Stefan, for your wonderful, not easy $1 million question. I think what could be given the advice, there is advocacy, people say we are going to do something, what would be the point? I think the point is to look, that's the nice thing, is to see that you have, for example, now a clear direction. What should they focus on? So they have 3 areas to focus on and to see with whom would they need to sit together, meaning sitting together, forming an intersectoral working group, looking whose responsibility is what, defining, sitting clear there, defining the responsibility and respective budget lines, looking who is responsible, for example, very often that's totally unclear, whose responsibility to do the repair. Are they allowed to use the operation maintenance budget to do repair or to buy soap? What is exactly in that? And go and define that clearly and come in with implementing guidelines, for example. That would be my suggestion. I think that's nothing that happens immediately. This is a long process, but that's something to start working. And I think it's wonderful that we have now this clear framework because that sets very clear directions. Is that a bit, maybe some, yeah, okay. Then the other question was the question of toilet maintenance, how to manage and how to at least look at maintenance. Yes, that's a big, big issue. Again, the same to clarify, to make a decision between repair, easy repair, or heavy maintenance, light maintenance, and let's say regular supply which need to be there, doing a cost estimation, looking into this just for the audience. We have a bit looked into it and looked at the maintenance of, operation maintenance of a toilet is roughly between $30 and $50 a year in the school, depending on the sort of infrastructure you have. So that's something also to see where's the budget for this. If we build, we also need to see, do we have a budget within the education sector, for example, to do operation maintenance? Yeah, that would be a question. I was not sure if I fully understood your question with the gender segregation. If you thought already a bit in the direction of transgender, where are they? I didn't fully get the question, but I think it's very important first in the first step to see that you have segregated toilets for girls to really provide, to have privacy. I think that's very important. And we can also see other parts of the earth, on the globe, you see now many countries start to again see that, for example, toilets, if you have not gender segregated, but unisex toilets work much better than gender segregated toilets. That what is shown now in Scotland and in France. They made studies and showed that, for example, for secondary schools, unisex toilets are much better maintained and cleaned, and you don't see vandalism in the same way. But I think that is also a question where you are, in which location, and therefore, again, I think there's never a one-fits-all. But I think for many parts of the world, it's very important to have gender-segregated toilets, specifically for girls. Finance toilets, what is that question?
Where's the money coming from?
Yeah, I think that's... Yeah, thank you for that question. I think I a little bit elaborated on that before. It's a question of really looking in what kind of budget would you need, and before you say we need budget, you need to define how much you would need so that you would sit and have really figures to talk about. And that is something, for example, where I said we once worked a bit on that and could see that you need between $30 and $50 per toilet to maintain it and to clean it every day. So that is also something that costs a lot of money. You would need the money for that. And also to see that you have to agree that, for example, operation and maintenance of that has to be within the education sector, while repair might be with public works and highways or the rural development sector. That's a question within each country, which might be different, but you have to sit and agree on that. And that's something which need clear agreement between the sectors. And again, it's a very intersectoral endeavor, and Washington schools need to work a lot at the interface.
Okay. As we have very tight time, so we will take only the comment. Yes. His Excellency, Mr. Sami, he wants to comment on the experience of Jordan. Then, well, I'm so sorry that we will not be able to take more questions. The nice thing that at SuSanA platform there are 1,115 items related to the SDGs. And we would like to continue this discussion with you over there at the platform. So it's not the end, and it's not only limited to this session. Now, Mr. Sami.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to mention that Jordan is classified as an arid or semi-arid region. It's one of the 4 driest countries all over the world. The population of Jordan is 9.5 million, includes 3 million refugees, which placed a great burden on Jordan, especially the infrastructure of school. What we have done during the last years, not for Jordanian, but for Jordanian and Syrian students, we have done many things. First of all, introducing the concept, skills and values of water in curricula. That's to provide the student with the knowledge they need to deal with water and hygiene and sanitation. Also, implementing many programs and activities with many donors and NGOs, and also following up the maintenance of school sanitation and infrastructure to ensure the healthy environment for schools. For that, we offer a block grant for each school. It's around 1,000 GD, it's around $1,500 per year. It's a block grant for WASH. And also we increase the percent for WASH from the budget of the school that collect from student fees up to 40%, especially for WASH and sanitation in our school. That's all. And also we have a new concept for sanitation. We work with another donors such as GIZ or USAID to improve the learning environment of students. And thank you very much.
Thank you so much.